Please, please save my baby, she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of desperation. Tears streamed down her streaked cheeks as she clutched the bundle in her arms. The wind howled around her, carrying her plea across the empty parking lot to a man who hadn't felt anything in years, and that man was me. I never intended to be anyone's hero. For most of my life, I was the guy who made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Media mogul, tech genius, self-made billionaire. They used all those fancy words to describe me, but none of them told the real story. Not the story of a man who grew up believing that feelings were liabilities, that love was a distraction, and that helping people was a waste of perfectly good resources. Until that night, it was raining, cold, and I was pissed off. My private jet had been grounded due to storms, and my driver had taken the long way around because of road closures. We were creeping along in my Bentley SUV when I saw her standing under a flickering streetlight, soaked through, clutching a baby so tightly it looked like her arms would break before she let go. The security detail in the front seat didn't want to stop, but I told them to. I rolled down the tinted window and looked out. She was barely standing, her lips trembled, her hands shook, but it was her eyes, God, her eyes, that hit me like a punch to the gut. They were wide with fear, hollow with pain, but still glowing with something that could only be described as hope. I don't have anywhere else to go, she said. I've knocked on every door. They told me no, please, he's sick. My mind was already calculating risks, public exposure, liability, bad press. I should have told her to get in line with the rest of the world, but something inside me said no. Something inside me said, get out of the damn car. And I did. Her name was Emily Carter, 24, single mom, worked 2 jobs until she was laid off, no family, no friends left. She had taken her 6-month-old son Micah to the hospital after he developed a fever and strange rash. The free clinic misdiagnosed him. She begged for a second opinion. No one listened. By the time she found a doctor who would actually run tests, it was almost too late. Micah had a rare autoimmune disorder, the kind that needed constant monitoring, expensive treatment, and a highly specialized team of doctors. Emily had none of that, not even enough money to pay for the ride home. When she sat across from me in the hospital's waiting area, her body was visibly trembling. Not just from cold, but from years of exhaustion, rejection, and fear. She kept looking over her shoulder, like she expected someone to come and take her child away. What does he need? I asked her finally. Everything, she whispered, more than I can give. And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I realized I could give something that actually mattered. Over the following weeks, I moved heaven and earth to get Micah the care he needed. I flew in specialists from Switzerland, paid for a private pediatric ICU, and brought in a nutritionist, therapist, and an entire team of around the clock nurses. Every time Emily thanked me, I just nodded, pretending it was no big deal. But inside, I was changing. This woman who had nothing, no fame, no influence, no connections, fought harder for her child than I had ever fought for anything in my life. She sat next to his hospital bed for 72 hours straight, never sleeping, just holding his tiny hand and whispering lullabies. She didn't care who I was, how much money I had, or what kind of empire I ran. To her, I was just the man who had the power to help, and she was brave enough to ask for it. That did something to me, of course. Not everyone approved. My board of directors threatened to pull investments. My PR team begged me to stop playing nurse and get back to business. I even got messages from old flames accusing me of putting on a charity act to clean up my image. But none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was that Micah was getting better. What mattered was that I started visiting every day, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. What mattered was that, slowly, Emily stopped looking at me like I was a stranger, and started looking at me like I was someone she could trust. One night, as the sun set over the hospital and painted the sky with gold and crimson light, Emily and I sat on the bench outside the children's ward. Micah was finally asleep, his cheeks full of color again. Emily had her hair tied back in a messy bun, her hoodie 2 sizes too big, but I swear she looked more radiant than any supermodel I'd ever dated. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked quietly. "You could have just driven away." I thought about it for a long time before answering, because you made me realize I've spent my whole life building something empty. And now I want to build something real. She didn't respond, just looked at me for a long time, and then she smiled, a small, tired, beautiful smile. Months passed, Micah came home, Emily got her certification as a pediatric nurse. I paid for the schooling, but she did the work. She refused to accept handouts. Every dollar she took, she paid back in effort and gratitude, and an unwavering determination to stand on her own feet. And me, I stepped down from my company, appointed a CEO with more compassion and less ego. I started a foundation for single mothers and underprivileged children, and I spent every evening with Emily and Micah, learning what it really meant to be part of a family. They say money can't buy happiness. They're right, but it can buy a second chance for someone else and sometimes for yourself. I never set out to be a father or a partner or a man who cries when his son takes his first steps, but life has a funny way of showing you what truly matters. And that night, when Emily stood in the rain, begging a stranger to save her baby, she saved me too. Ending scene, slow fade, doubt, soft piano music. Emily, now glowing and confident, kisses Micah on the forehead as he runs across a sunny park. I stand beside her, no longer the millionaire, but just a man holding the hand of the woman who taught him how to live. The screen fades to black, and the words appear: one moment of courage, one act of kindness, a lifetime of change. Like, share, subscribe, and remember, sometimes saving someone else is how you save yourself.